So our next speaker is all about breaking down silos to drive more revenue. So Denny is CCO of River Consultancy and also creator of CRO Strategy Lab. So he's worked with some of the biggest SaaS names to help with sales, marketing, and CS, pulling in the same direction and hitting those numbers that matter. So today, he's going to show us what customer success looks like when you think like a CRO. And Denny. I love the jacket. You look great.
Thank you. Thanks, MC. As you guys can see, I don't need a video to look like a Muppet. This is my first SaaSiest. I'm loving it. There's been amazing speakers. I was specifically told dress glittery, dress pink, dress disco, and I am the only one I've seen so far. So well done on whoever came up with that prank. But I also didn't want MC to feel left out, so I kept it on. So yes, I'm Denny Burda. I'm CCO of a consulting company called River Consultancy. And over the past year, if you ask anyone who knows me, they would say Denny is obsessed with revenue. And I've been on a journey. I've interviewed about 40 CROs from companies that scale all the way from kind of just leaving that incubator startup phase all the way to companies that are now turning hundreds and hundreds of millions in revenue. And something I found incredibly interesting when I started this journey and started asking, frankly, very important people, hey, can I have 30 minutes to an hour of your time in interviewing them? 70 to 75% of the CROs I met came from a sales background. They were VP of sales, business development, things like that. 20-ish% were coming from marketing. Their background was marketing and things like that. Out of the 40 plus, I think I'm probably getting closer to 50 now CROs that I've interviewed in the past year. 2 of them started as a CCO. And so, that paints a picture that lets me know. I also just realized I don't have a clicker. I don't know where that went. It's very hard to go through slides, but that's okay.
That's me not doing my job properly.
That's okay. You're fired. No. But out of all those, I interviewed 40 plus, 2 had a background in customer success. And so I asked a very simple question to all these revenue-based and marketing-based CROs. I said, where does customer success fit in? And every single one of them said, I have no idea. They said, I know it's important. I know that the profits we can turn as a company when our post-sales gets it right is significantly more economical and equitable than the cost it takes to build a business, but I have no idea how to do it. So that's what started me on this journey to build out what I call the CRO Strategy Lab. And it's not just about customer success, but it's really about putting the core of what customer success is, or what I believe it should be, into every function within a business. So in CS Like a CRO, we're going to talk briefly about how to drive the metrics that matter to the office of the CRO. And I say office because some companies still call this a chief sales officer. Some people might actually say, hey, our CCO is doing this. Other companies might say, hey, our CEO is owning this. Just know when I say CRO, it doesn't refine just to that position, but it's to the idea of the wider idea of revenue. So I'm going to share the key metrics. I've identified about 12 metrics that pretty much every CRO I talk to used, lived by, said this is what we need to get right for our business to succeed. I'm not going to go into every one of them because I only have about 18 minutes remaining, I think. I'm going to talk, if you are in CS, how you can directly contribute to those metrics, or at least we're going to hit on a few of them. And if you are a CRO in the room, or if you are maybe a VP of CS, sales, marketing, you can start to see how actually when you do this in your business and when you bring these CS practices in, what sort of impact it can have. So I want to ask a very simple question. What is a CRO? So I asked several different AIs, several LLMs. I checked with every CRO I was interviewing. I said, could you tell me what is your job exactly? And this was the most common unified answer I got from all those things. And it's that the chief revenue officer is exclusively designed to bridge the gap between the various revenue generating functions. In most companies, they think of that as sales, customer success or post-sales, and marketing to fill their pipeline. Some of the CROs I talked to also said, hey, product does play a huge role into this. We see product as a revenue generator. Some also saw support as a revenue generator. Hey, when we get this right, we grow our business. So if you are a CRO or if the office of CRO is there, it's to basically figure out how do all these divergent revenue silos come together. I'm going to jump straight into the metrics. I apologize. They might be a little bit small on the screen. I believe you guys will be able to grab all of my slides afterwards. I also have a takeaway that you guys should be able to download that talks about the alignment between teams. It includes these as well. Welcome to take pictures, but even in pictures, it might be small. You can also find me on LinkedIn, ask for them afterwards. I'm happy. I want all this to be shared. I want it to be free. So quick poll before we dive into the metrics. How many people here, show of hands, and we're going to play this, I don't know if you guys remember the game from childhood, Guess Who, where you're trying to knock down the tiles. How many here, show of hands, keep them up, are in customer success? Okay, wow, awesome. Keep them up. Keep them up. I didn't say you could put them down. I haven't guessed if you're wearing glasses or have blonde hair or things like that yet. How many of you hold what you believe to be a revenue metric? So I'm basically saying, something you do contributes to revenue. Thank God not a single hand went down. That could have been a scary conversation. How many of you feel like, as part of a customer success team, owning a revenue metric or supporting maybe even multiple, you guys have authority in that space? Meaning you guys actually drive it, you control it, you contribute to it, you report on it, and you know what's going on. Amazing, amazing. Still seeing hands up. Last one. This one is usually where I get to play Guess Who, and a lot of hands go down. How many of you, as a CSM, a CS manager, head of CS leader, any of those things, with your hands still up, how many of you have a seat at the executive table? Wow. So telling. So we have this divergent problem here. You can put your hands down. Sorry. I saw a few people. So many CROs that I meet say, we know CS work and CS delivery is important. And then I talk to so many CS people and they say, I don't even know how to get my CRO's attention. So I'm going to pick a few. I'm just going to pick a few of these from each one. So as a CSM, as a CS manager, as a CS leader, customer acquisition cost, hoping people know roughly what that means. I do break down in this graph, how is it measured most commonly across companies? Why does it matter? Things like that. Revenue businesses right now often live and die on customer acquisition cost, and I kind of call its partner, customer lifetime value, or how long it takes for a customer to essentially make you money versus what you've spent on them. Not too long ago, the average CAC, customer acquisition cost, was around 5x, meaning for every euro you spent to bring it or made off a customer, you were spending 5. And that worked really well about 2 to 3 years ago when everything was booming, growth at all cost was fine, investments were coming in. Literally in the past 6 months, I've seen companies saying we will not settle for anything less than 3 to 1. And that is for customers that they believe will hit their lifetime value. Now, the problem with that is the same research I was pulling at said the average time a customer existed in a company before they churned was 18 months. Can somebody do quick math here? If it takes you 3x to get a customer profitable and you sign them to, say, 1-year deals over and over again, and they churn somewhere or notify that they're going to churn somewhere in year 2, how much money did you make? 0. You kept yourself alive for 1.5 years, but you actually cost yourself money. So when I talk to revenue leaders or founders or people going through their next round of investment, and they're running a strategy that actually says, hey, we've got 50 million influx in investment, we're at a 10 million ARR, but the truth is that ARR every 18 months is actually going down, they're in trouble. So as a CSM, you can actually think about the work you do. Maybe when you raise your hands about owning a revenue metric, the most common one was probably something along the lines of ARR, MRR, GRR, NRR, something with an RR in it, recurring revenue. If you guys can understand that the work you're doing on ARR and driving LTV, getting customers to recur and to stay and growing those margins, Moving from maybe 90 to 95% ARR, 95 to 100. The really good ones are doing it at 100 to 105, 110% year over year growth. What you're actually doing is saying, hey, the customers we're working with are customers that you should be finding and acquiring because we know who they are and how to do it. You drive that acquisition cost down because you're removing the research. A really practical way to do that, if you are in CS, is simply start talking to your marketing team. I know that sounds like a novel concept because they're just the really popular people who are sitting in the corner and making great, amazing, fun things and running the events, but actually saying, hey guys, we've identified that these customers in this segment stick around. Then you can justify a higher customer acquisition cost. You can also contribute to it on the other side of that and go, hey, we've identified, don't be afraid of this word, churned customers are not hitting our LTV or our customer acquisition cost because they're leaving at 1.5 years, and we've identified maybe they come from this segment. Maybe they come from this size. Maybe they're customers, if you have a very complex product and you have a longer than, say, 60 to 90-day implementation time, and customers, because they implement with another product or because they have a certain use case that isn't being addressed, you might actually say, hey, why are we spending 3x on customers that we know are going to leave in 18 months? How do we get that down to 1.5x? Because you know what? A 1.5x CAC customer who churns in 18 months still made you 3 months of LTV. Just different ways you can think about it, but you as the teams working with those customers and knowing who's staying, who's going, who's reaching their LTV and beyond is vital information. And quite frankly, the CROs I talk to say, I wish I knew how to do that. Again, I'm just going to pull some of these. How many of you as CS leaders or CSMs are in charge of pipeline? Amazing. Fantastic. I see that number a lot lower on average because so many companies are still thinking pipeline is new business. The number one hack I teach CS people who are trying to get a seat at the table with their CROs, or even if smaller companies, maybe it's just still led in founder-led growth stage. I say the number one thing you should do is when you start talking to them is start talking about the work you do as the growth and renewal pipeline. Not hey, here's our ARR or NRR, here's the customers that are renewing. I actually say use the term pipeline because the people running it need to get in their heads that actually your pipeline is not new business. It is new business plus existing business plus growth minus churn. And you should be looking at all 4 of those. Yes, they could be an individually tracked metric, but that is one pipeline. It's one system that's working together because if I am your CRO and I need to forecast what we're going to invest in the next quarter to half year, I don't want to just know who might be joining our company or who might be buying our product. I want to know who's sticking around. I want to know who has growth potential. And I want to know who's on their way out. And if, by the way, you guys are a revenue leader in this room, you need to start supporting and normalizing reporting on churn as part of your pipeline. Do not make your CS teams afraid to tell you someone's leaving. Yeah, I'll leave it at there. I could tell a story, but I don't have time. Ask me afterwards when beer's available. Actually, sorry, I'm going to go back one more and talk about it. Average sales cycle length. I'm going to report on this in a second, but do we have any salespeople? Thank you. All 3 of you. You can put hands up. I'm sorry, I started too early with the keep the hands up thing. You can just put them down from now on. But I talk to a lot of salespeople as well. I don't discriminate. I talk to everybody. And the number one fear salespeople often give to me when I say, hey, work with your CS team, is in the pre-sale cycles, they say, that'll slow things down. And I can't afford it. I have a quota to hit. It can feel like that if you guys aren't aligned. If you guys are actually aligned and you're saying, you know what? How many of you guys as salespeople or who have been salespeople practice something like Spiced, Medic, Medpic, whatever? In there's a word called discovery. Guess who's really good at discovery? Customer success people. Implementation and onboarding people, because they can answer those discovery questions and work with your customer and go, oh, hey, actually, you know what? You fit one of our use cases perfect, and I have another customer doing it. Boom, you just got yourself a built-in CS customer referral that should help you close that deal. So as you in sales begin to work with CS and bring CS methodologies and practices and knowledge into your sales cycle, you can actually reduce that. And I'm going to share some really cool research metrics that I found on that in just a second. Ironically, some of these, churn rate, upsell and cross-sell rate, again, almost every CS leader I talk to now is responsible for these, but they don't own the reporting on it. Isn't that interesting? It usually goes through RevOps. And then I have CS leaders fighting with RevOps teams and saying, that's not our number, that's not who churned. They didn't churn completely, why are you counting all of it? So if you are a CS leader in here, besides obviously the work you do day in and day out, constantly impacting these two metrics, make sure that the numbers are reporting right, and make sure you know who owns the single source of truth on those. You'll see that I finally included NPS. I'm going to be honest with you. Every CRO I talked to, they had it on their list, and I said, well, what good does NPS do your business? And they said, almost none. So if you are still a CS leader and NPS is still your North Star, I have some really bad news for you. Your CRO only cares that you report on it, but they only care because it's a lagging indicator of are customers generally happy or not. If you're also in the NPS business and you're in a larger company or growing towards the enterprise space, you know that NPS is a really hard number to track because you may have accidentally sent an NPS score to that German customer when he did not have his morning coffee, and so he's automatically going to score you as a 2, which means he actually loves your product. So just know you got to be looking at multiple factors of how you can contribute. So I'm not going to cover it all because, like I said, we don't have time. I'm happy to talk about any of these with any of you guys afterwards, online, anything like that. Like I said, I've been obsessed with this for the past year. Just find me and we can chat if you really want to deep dive into how you can do one of these. But what happens when this goes? And by the way, this isn't my research from my conversations. This is public research. Again, when you guys get it, you can go to the sources. Companies who have a CS program have 100% NRR improving rate over companies that don't. So if for no other reason you need to justify CS's seat at the table is you say, I have 100% impact on NRR. Walk to the executive table and say, if you don't use us, you're basically letting 100% NRR growth out the door. When CS works with the sales cycle, I talked about sales cycle time earlier, on average, and this was from a study, 47 days to 36. Anyone have an idea roughly how many days are in a quarter? 90. So in 90 days, if you're going off of 47 days, that means you can roughly push about 2.5 deals through. If all of a sudden CS gets involved, you get closer to 3. What would it mean for your business if your sales team was closing on average 1 more deal per quarter, per person, per rep? Huge, huge growth production. And by the way, churn reduction, when it was led by CS proactively, meaning CS leaders were able to go and say, hey, I know you guys care about churn. I have ideas on how we can stop it, or I have ideas on how we can identify it. When CS was given that driver's seat and saying, we need to do this to stop churn, churn reduces by 30%. When CS is made accountable for churn and has zero authority to do anything about it, it still goes. But when you give your CS teams the power to do it, if you're running a revenue business, 30% reduction. There's a great way to do that. How many of you guys are familiar with the term deal desk? Decent half? Deal desk is a pretty common process. A lot of SaaS companies, a lot of companies use it. And it's simply this. It's, hey, we have this customer incoming. We think if we do X, Y, and Z, we can close the deal. Sometimes it's bringing in an executive to the table. Sometimes it's running a very specific playbook, different things like that. But it's basically pulling in leaders, usually from sales, from marketing, from product. And hey, if we build this feature, this deal closes, it's worth this much. You can take that exact same process and bring it to what I call the heel desk, which is simply the same idea, but it's saying, hey, this customer relationship is strained. We have negative indicators. We see them as a churn risk. And you can evaluate, hey, how much does that customer spend? How much do we think it would cost to turn that customer from a risk into somebody who supports our business or wants to stick around or who's going to hit that LTV metric? Oh, is it going to take a call from our CEO or CPO or CTO to just make them feel like they're being heard? Oh, is it going to take this feature? How much feature does that actually take? And when all of a sudden you're having a meeting where you're bringing in your different cross-org leaders, like a head of sales, a head of marketing, and they go, I don't want to lose that customer, or, oh, that feature will take us one sprint, and you're telling me it can save us X 100,000, by not losing that customer, and then all of a sudden there's 10 other CS leaders in that call or CSMs in that call going, actually my customer needs that too. Just like actually a few talks ago, if you were in that product feedback loop. So last bit, what's next? All I'm asking of you guys, afterwards when you guys get these slides sent to you, pick one that isn't NPS. Pick one metric, read about how you can contribute to it as a CS leader, and put a plan together and make that plan cross-collaborative with somebody in sales or somebody in marketing within your team, or product, frankly. But pick one. Don't try and fix all 12 metrics as a CSM or a CS leader overnight. It's too wide, it's too thin. But if you suddenly say, we're going to do actions as a CS team to improve CAC or improve LTV or to decrease pipeline by bringing my CS teams into the earlier stages of the sales cycle, and you come up with that plan, you have that seat at the revenue table. I guarantee you, because 99 out of 100 CROs don't know what you do. But if they know you're doing something cross-collaboratively to help one of these metrics, you've just bought your seat at the CRO's table. If you need more help, please go ahead, check out River Consultancy's CRO Strategy Lab. I see Sahil. Sahil, I'm going to make you do one more raise a hand. This is my guess who of the day. Does he have a mustache that goes out this far? Yes, it's Sahil. Sahil and I are working together on something through CS Connect, which we're just calling the Revenue Lab. That'll be coming out next year. Between now and then, we're running 3 free webinars that dig into a lot of this a lot deeper. So follow Sahil, follow CS Connect, and find me anytime afterwards. I'm happy to talk about this more with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Denny.